Evening. Yeah. Oh. No, it's just protecting my shoulder because it's cutting in, so it's just a soft thing. It doesn't matter if it gets the people's time. I know. Thanks very much. That's all right. That's okay. Good. Evening, everybody. Tonight we have for you 7 o'clock talk by members about their photographic journey, and you all know John Hawken, our secretary. So pass it over to you.
Hold on. You hear me? Excellent. Thank you for coming along and listening to what I call my journey. It's not something I do very often, get in front of people and talk, but there we go tonight. And that might work. Excellent. So what I'd like to do tonight is just take you through the different phases I've had in my journey through photography, which does span a few decades, and we'll see how that looks. Tell you a little bit about me, not too much. I'll show you my progression in photographic development, and that's the key really of what I want to show tonight. And hopefully by the end of the evening you'll see that from my early days to now there has been improvement, and I think everybody does the same thing, and hopefully you'll see that in mine. Not everything in here is in chronological order. I just sort of put them in groupings, but you'll get the picture. No pun intended. Actually, it all began when I was in athletics many, many years ago. John Thornton, he's here. He's another ex-athlete.
Is that you, John?
That's me. Yes, I was a hurdler, and that's 110 metre hurdles, very high. I was better at the 400. But that's where it all began, and what I was doing is one of my coaches had I think of the name of the camera now. He had a DSLR, and I started taking photos of the guys from my club, the Leith Club, in Dunedin. But I sort of got a bit bored of just taking the same old photos all the time, and I went out and bought my first camera, which is an Olympus OM1, obviously a film camera. This is way back last century, and I started to take a little bit different things, started to experiment. And this is actually at the athletics venue, and these are the glasses I used to wear, my John Lennon glasses, and that's actually my wife that's reflected in there at the moment. And I also bought some Lightroom equipment, but tonight I'm not going to go through any of what I did in the the dark room, get the two mixed up. But I did have the full gear, and two of my best friends in Dunedin, their fathers were in the photographic industry. One had a photographic shop, and one had the photographic lab. So I spent a lot of money in there and contributed heavily to their inheritance. I started trying to take self-portraits, but that was a little bit tough. I don't really like doing those, so I started doing some of my friends. And this is one of the friends whose father owned the photographic shop. And sometimes they even smiled. And there's another group of friends. These two guys, both once also included in the Photographic Society in New Zealand, at Dunedin. And they were pretty cooperative sometimes. But these were the sort of photos I was taking. I just having fun, learning how to use the camera, and seeing what comes out of it. I even tried shooting a concert. This is Joe Cocker. He was drunk as. It was amazing. You weren't supposed to have a camera in there, but I managed to sneak it in with a fairly big lens. But it's the only concert I did shoot. It wasn't actually that easy. I preferred taking photos of my friends and their friends, and that was sort of a lot easier to do. And some of the other things I used to do, this is this one here is a field trip that we did when I was doing engineering. You might see a geologist's pick on his shoulder there. That was a geology field trip. And people should recognise these two ladies. They came to our jamboree camp and decided they had to do a bit of a prank in our camp, so I got that photo. But once again, just having a bit of fun, but I didn't really know what I was doing, you know, but it was fun. And then I got a bit of a purpose in life with the camera. I landed a job with the NZED, and I was basically involved in surveying power lines where they went and helping them to do some of the building. I'll get to that later, thank you. No, that one's up on the top of the Lammerlaws in sort of between Dunedin and Alexandra, and that was the first tower that was ever put up to test a wind generator in New Zealand. They actually put a wind generator on top, so it wasn't a power line. But these guys here were building it, and that progressed. Oh, that's another shot of me standing on top of a 33 kV line. But it was the guys that I was actually working with that I enjoyed taking the photographs of the most. This guy, Bro, that's all we knew him by. This is in Twizel. He was the sort of the guy that stood on the ground and made sure everything happened. But quite often we found him more often in the sort of this pose. It was pretty laid back, but he was a lovely guy. Oh yes. They also had a little lens which had a sort of a pyramid on the end of it. So I started playing around with that and having a bit of fun. That's the Benmore Power Station's spillway. But then I decided I'd try and do a series of the guys actually working. So I sort of started to get a bit of an idea of, you know, what you could do with the camera and what benefit it could have to my work job. These are actually just scans of photographs, so the quality is not great. But these guys were basically connecting the conductor, once it had been put across all the towers, onto the insulator. And they start at the top of the tower because it's got 3 levels, and carry on down. And there you go. There's the finished product. What you can see here from there to there is protection which they put on before they clamp it onto the tower. Then it was a little bit more of a tricky job, climbing up a tower. I had to have 2 hands free, so I had to belt myself to the tower. And this guy's got what they call a go-kart, and he's come along the line to do an inspection. They have these go-karts on lines where they have 2 conductors side by side, so that they can put separators in the middle. So they have to basically go down the line and they inspect the connectors on those separators. Pays not to stand up, you might lose your head. No, they wouldn't do that in the wind. No. This is at a place called 3 Mile Hill, which is just sort of along the top of Dunedin. And that's going down into the Taieri Plains. Once again, I had a bit of fun with the lens that I had. And this is the one in Alistair. You'll notice here, not a bolt in sight at the bottom. In fact, you can see quite clearly, that's how you stop a tower from falling over. Up north, they didn't know how to do that. It's me again, hanging off the ladder. It was interesting work, always felt safe. But it was my job to actually make sure that the conductors, when they put them up, were all hanging correctly. And we did that with a theodolite. I haven't got any photos of that because I was working at the time. But the guys I worked with, they had no fear. They really did have no fear. And I don't know if you noticed, but this guy here, I'm pretty sure he hasn't even got a belt on holding him onto the system. I never really took too much notice of the safety parts, and these are some of the shots which we were never allowed to show the boss. This young guy over here was actually our supervisor, guy from Christchurch. I'm pretty sure he's still alive, but you know, walking around on a tower with your hands in your pockets pretty much didn't do me much good. I used to leave fingerprints in the steel. Then I found another purpose. I met this young lady who became my wife, and I discovered quickly that although initially she liked getting a photo taken, but really she didn't. So can't say that's the reason, but we had kids, 3 young boys. This is the first 2, and I started photographing them. Of course, that's what you do when you've got children. And why wouldn't you when you've got 3 young lads that were prepared to sit in front of the camera until they got to a certain age? So I was just keeping learning once again how to use the camera, and this is all still done on film. And I really thought I was improving. Not sure. This is, like I say, these aren't all in chronological order. In fact, that boy there is the youngest one, not in the 2 photos above. But not knowing what I was doing, then I met this guy, Paul Daly. And I'm pretty sure that there's at least 2, if not 3 people in the audience that have been to Paul's classes. And they'll know that this would have cost me a chocolate fish, or if not a chocolate whale, because you didn't take photos of Paul. But we had lots of field trips with Paul, and I slowly started to understand what I was doing. I went to his classes for 2 years in a row, beginners and post-beginners, and that's where I learnt, I guess, more the technical information that I needed to take photographs. I think everybody that's done his courses have really enjoyed them. Also did a Photoshop one with them as well. So I tried lots of different things. Obviously Mount Cook over here. Don't know if everybody notices that it's got 2 faces. You see the face there? These are my brother-in-law in Dunedin. He owns an engineering business and lets me come down sometimes and take photos of him working. And these ones here are out of Paul's classes. And this one here, I actually took photographs of my granddaughter when we visited them in Vietnam when they lived for a while, going down a slide. And then we're on Quail Island a few years later, and I discovered this shell. And I thought, wonder if I can actually superimpose her as if she's sliding down the shell, which turned out quite well, I thought. It was one of my first attempts to do something like that in Photoshop, for sure. But with Paul, we learnt lots of different stuff. Trip to Oamaru for the Steampunk Festival. This one here is on the west coast. It's actually north of Motukiki. These rocks quite often get bypassed, but they're quite amazing in the right light. And whoops, another one of Paul. Whoop, that was wrong. Whoop, going backwards here, I thought. Yeah. Another one of Paul. Didn't have to pay a fish for that one. That's up at Castle Hill. And somewhere along the line I joined CPS, I think it was in 2016. And started to get the influence of the people that I started to know in CPS as well. This one over here is of one of the banks in Oamaru. I've only got one grandson. That's him there, and there, and there. So just playing around in Photoshop again. That's my 3 sons, and the one in the middle is the father. This one over here, the bridge that crosses over the Buller River, where the, what's it called? I was just up from Greymouth. No, not Tiramacau. It's where they got the old mine. That was a shot I took. I zoomed as I shot down the bridge, and then later on in Photoshop I twisted it. Had a bit of fun playing around with that one. And so eventually, like I say, with all the stuff that Paul taught us, plus the knowledge that I gained through other CPS members, it all started to come together. This is my favourite beach, or it was until they took the posts out, unfortunately. They're no longer there. This one here is 3 photos. It was quite a nice morning. This one here was cloudy, but that way all across. And this one was red like that the whole way across. I put that in a competition and the judge had no idea what it was. So that's St Clair and Dunedin. I say these piles of no longer exist. I think we went for a couple of field trips to Dunedin with Paul. And of course you find stunning locations. A lot of people that go through Arthur's Pass don't realise that this is a minute from the main road behind the church. They all go to the Punch Bowl, which takes about half an hour to get there, where this lovely little waterfall is just behind the church there. And I think you'll probably seen quite a few photos from people at CPS in that area. So going on the workshops and field trips, it just all builds up your knowledge and your confidence, playing with different techniques. Once again, this is at St Clair, not on a CPS workshop, but with Paul, I think it was. In-camera movement, it's an interesting thing to play with. You can chew up a lot of room on your card. And it just seemed to get easier as you learnt with all the people helping you along the way. That one's Coal Creek Waterfall, just north of Greymouth. And the other one is the sunset over Stewart Island from the Humpridge track. I take my camera when I go tramping, and you get to locations which a lot of photographers just don't have a chance to. And then occasionally you do awards come along. So this was the gold medal winner for the Laurie Thomas in 2019, only 3 years after I'd joined CPS, which I was absolutely stunned. But I took this standing beside Paul Daly, and he didn't sit, and I think Nicola was there too, yeah. No one else saw that cloud. It was in the sky, I didn't put it in. It was just a freak, I guess. Yes, COVID came along. That was a tricky time. Camera got out a lot more, I guess. It's not easy to try and take a photograph of shiny things like that without catching yourself in the image. I had to poke a hole through a cloth so it wouldn't show. But just having fun, playing around. And in the springtime, I found these images in National Geographic that someone had done of petals and leaves and other bits of plants and turned them into insects and other things. That was my first attempt. It didn't come out too bad. I didn't get told off for taking the flowers off the trees. So wasn't too bad. And then have a bit of fun. This is taken up at Farewell Spit area, and I saw the seal going, and I thought I'd take it. I just took 3 photos of it as it was going in front of me, and later on I thought, I could put those together, and that's what it turned out like. So it's just what I do is just keep on playing. That's our backyard. That's a zoom in again on the camera to try and give a bit of a misty effect. And I put a little character here, which one of my sons carved out of sandstone. And it came out quite nice, I thought. Natural history is not something that came natural to me. I find it quite difficult, especially things that move fast. That's actually over there tonight. Fortunately, this little fella stood there, or sat there, for about 10 seconds. Did get some other shots of him with an insect in its mouth, but there was foliage in front of it, so it wasn't so good. But I do find it quite hard. The fella on the left here, it was an orb web spider. probably about that big, a span. It was on a web outside a reception area in a place in northern Queensland. Didn't want to get too close to it, but it was an amazing little insect. Went back one day and it was gone, and the birds got it. Birds had figured out how to catch the spider without getting stung. And obviously a little bellbird there having a nectar feed. So you can see that most of my natural history stuff is still. These herons were sitting on these, is it a manuka type? No, not sure what that is. In a lake just south of Hokitika. And they were heading down to where they nest? Otariki. We were going down there for a field trip. I actually got my best photos of the white herons at this lake. Just happened to call in on the way down. And there they were. They were beautiful. That was a watercolour I took. I didn't think about it when I took it, but my parents used to have watercolours in their house of Mediterranean scenes. And after looking at it for a while, I thought that would be really, it just sort of fitted, you know, the colours, and it looked like what I thought it should. And there's a tutorial on YouTube which I followed, about 1,000 steps to turn it into a watercolour like that. But it was great fun. You can actually turn them into actions anyway. That was a reflection up near Twizel. Looks like a guy with glasses. I actually took a few pieces out of that one. And it was a bit more artistic. That was an avocado seed which my wife had sitting in a jar for quite a long time until it sprouted. And I just hung it by a cord and got rid of the cord. Put a bit of texture on it, those sort of things. And that was a leaf I found in our back garden. And I think it was maybe 10 or 12 shots to get the focus correctly, focus stack it. It was actually held by a little clip, but I obviously got rid of the clip. And it's got a leaf in the background to sort of cover it, but I thought it came out quite nice. I just like the shape of it, really. And just once again, playing, this time with light, you get some really nice halo effects and bokeh with things like this. They were ginkgo leaves sort of getting late in the year, about ready to fall off. And then just finding the wee small things. I think that was in the Botanic Gardens. And just focal points. Another one taken during the lockdown when the leaves were falling. And landscapes. That's really was my first love and still is. This one's actually the Remarkables taken from Queenstown. And those houses there were in the background through the trees, just spotting something a little bit different. And I think that's really what you need to look for, is something different than the standard photograph that everyone else takes. That one there is a bit different. I put that in a competition and the judge rejected it based on the fact that the green was unnatural, but that is actually what it looked like. It was in the Mackenzie area, and it was sort of probably 10 o'clock in the morning, and then what you can't see is there was quite a lot of cloud, and it must have been what caused that green effect. The sad thing was that the judge that didn't like it was from Twizel. But never mind, I like it. And that's sort of takes me to what I really do like, is wide panoramas. They don't always do that well in competitions because generally they like to fill the screen. But I do take a lot of wide panoramas. Less is more sometimes, I think. Even more or less. That one was up on the glacier at the Hooker Glacier. That's an island near Vietnam. And that's the top one's from Lake Pukaki. I've done a bit of travelling, not a huge amount. There's lots of interesting people to take photographs of, and which I have, but haven't put too many here. In fact, I think that might be the one. And always try to look for a different perspective is what I do. The Eiffel Tower certainly doesn't come like that in a postcard generally, but I quite like that one. It took a bit to get the sky to come up. And this was taken in Porto. I call it an oblique angle, but apparently a lot of photographers call it a Dutch angle. One judge did like this one. She thought it was really nice because of the angle of it. And sleeping little locals in Vietnam. This was they were on a platform of concrete, and I just got right down on the level of the concrete, took the photo. There was actually another group of them by the side, but just these ones together. Really quite cool, I thought. Anyone recognise the guy in the middle? It's near Rockarito. Yep. ANPSNZ goes out and talks to these guys, I think, pretty much every day when they're doing their fishing. Well, he did. He lives in Christchurch now, but happened to be down there. And he obviously has a very good rapport with all the locals. That's a recent one I took when we were tramping. Someone asked me how did I put the halo in there. Well, the halo was straight off the lens. Two young ladies who were both of them were married to two Irishmen, and when I showed him the back of the camera, he said, "Send me the photo." So I did. Oh, this was in Rarotonga. These guys, they were having fun. We had, of course, what they do infects you, and we had a great time too. It was at a hangi in a show in Rarotonga. These guys, they do it 4 or 5 nights a week. I don't know how they do it. They just love it. This is another moment. This is actually off film. We were walking the Heafy track. That's when you get down to the west coast. Sort of a contrast between the two different styles of clothing. But that beach was amazing. And my most recent challenge is my grandson's rugby. You'll see him there and there. He's got tremendous speed, which is really cool to watch. So he gets that mainly from his mother, I think, who was a Canterbury sprint champion at one stage. But this year I'm going to put a book together of the whole team. It's 20 pages with about, I think it's got about 50 images in it. But yeah, when you get ones like this one here with the faces, it's all worthwhile. And I managed to squeeze the names of each of the players on their jerseys or their arms, if I could, in that photo. And there was always the try. Yeah, but some of the expressions on the faces were pretty amazing. And I share the images with the whole team. That they've actually all ordered the book, every parent. So that was really pleasing. And finally, my most recent outing. JK and I went up to Whakariki Beach up in Golden Bay. That's the south end of the beach, sunset. I think JK took that one too, did you, JK? Yep. And that one there, JK was just over the sand dune taking his shot. No, you can't. I told him to sit down. Bar Beach, which is on the inside of the Golden Bay. That was maybe 100 yards down from where we were staying. Trying to get a good starburst over the top of that pole, but didn't quite work out exactly as I wanted. That's all, folks. Thank you. Any questions? No, Canon now. At the moment I'm doing a 52-week challenge, which I post on my Facebook page. Keeps me honest doing that. I try to put up 3 images a week on a theme that I select. This week I'm doing panning, so see how that one goes, how it pans out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, you choose a subject and if it doesn't work, well, you've learnt something. If it does work, you've also learnt something, so it's good. Week 35 I think we're at, and it is pretty hard to keep going, but on Facebook it sort of forces you to do it anyway.
You can get some ideas from your monthly challenge, can you? There's sheets of them.
There are sheets of them, yeah. There's also lots of stuff on the web, obviously, with what you can do for 52-week challenges, yeah. Glasses. Haven't done glasses yet. Yep, I can try that. And the subject doesn't always get reflected in the images, as some people might think, but they are there some way. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, and sharing your photograph journey with the rest of us. Following up, is Reid here? Okay. Following up, we will be looking at the images taken in June's Laura Thomas winter school, July, sorry, thank you. Now, how many people here was on the trip? Right, okay. Would any of you like to come up and make comments? Thank you, Heidi. Just a little bit of catching up here. Some of you who were here last week remember I talked about collage and montage, etc., and suggested some sort of joint effort. I've gone home and had a thought about this and done a bit of research, and I understand that collage is when you mixed materials, prints, pictures, you know, bit of newspaper, etc. And that's called a collage. A montage, photographic montage, where you combine multiple photographic images. And mosaic is, of course, is where you create a single image, no, a single picture from little tiles, if you like, of images. And so what I've done, I've created a showcase, which I've called it collage, montage, and mosaic. And in sort of people uploading their images, which can be used by others, what I would suggest is that either create your own montage from your own images, or try a collaborative effort if you can find some like-minded photographers and members. Form a group of 4 people, and you can pass your images. So one person can make a start on one, then pass it to the next person, and he or she can then add the second layer, if you like, and then from that you can actually build up a montage or a composite. This also gives you an opportunity to practice some Photoshop skills as well, which Shirley, who's not here tonight, last week, very kindly offered to be the coordinator to collate all the resources, if you like, especially people you can offer something to help other members about Photoshop. So we'll make it this sort of like a Photoshop montage exercise. Now, if there's a collaborative effort between several of you, on your, when you submit the image, could you just use the initials for the people that's involved? Because obviously between the 4 of you, you could submit 4 different versions. Say, for example, if it's 4 people starting A, B, C, D, all starting off with their own image and pass their image around, you will end up with 4 images, probably all built differently between 4 people. Later on in the year, hopefully we'll have an activity evening of montage and collage, if you like, which you can then add the pictures you've taken on the activity night to the final image, which you can submit. I'm not sure it's all clear, but if there's any questions, ask me during the tea break. So go online to have a look, and sorry about the confusion. It's really montage is what I meant. But all right, anyway, enjoy your tea, and we'll convene again about 8 o'clock for the print competition results. Yeah, thank you. That's okay.
It's going, yes. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second part of the CPS evening. My name is Nelson Bowstead. I'm your MC for the rest of the evening. I would welcome members, guests, visitors. Welcome Ben along to speak later on and have a look at the show tonight. And do we have any other people who are here for the first time? Nope. So you know where the exits and to each side of me and the toilets at the back are. I don't need to say that. The program tonight is the Natural History Print Competition. And before we get to that, a few notices. Do we have any field trips coming up? I'm not aware of any. No, but I'm sure there will be. You've had last week the call for program ideas, tips and tricks from Shirley. Is Shirley here? No, but she's asking for people to email tips and tricks. Perhaps you could phrase that with what are the questions you'd like. Things like, how do I do something? And if 5 or 6 people all ask, how do I enter a competition, we'll know we need to do that. So don't forget to send those in to Shirley, and you've had an email from her. You also had an email from Diana about let me get this right, I'm going to have to look it up, the competition for external competitions. It's a form for those people who enter nationwide national competitions, and there is a cup awarded for the person who has been most successful, and that's a form that has been sent out to all of you. If you're not familiar with that, come back and see me after the show. I'm completely lost, just give me a moment. Okay. Right, do we have any other notices or announcements? There was someone, yes, come on up. I got there on the end. There we go.
Thank you. So you may have heard we've talked about a composite workshop that Helen McLeod's running this coming weekend. It was full, but we've had somebody pull out, so there's now space available. So if anybody's interested, it's all day Saturday and Sunday. It's being held locally. It's only $100, so it's a bargain to have someone like that teaching us for the weekend. Just come and talk to me. We'd love to have somebody else join the group. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now call upon our Natural History Print Secretary, Nicola, and she will introduce the main program for this evening.
Thanks. Yep, I'm on. Thank you. I'm going to do 2 jobs. Thank you. First job, I'm just going to introduce John. John Reid is our judge for the natural history prints. He lives over in Greymouth. I'm very grateful for the promptness and the way that he dealt with the prints and got them back so quickly. A little bit about John. He is APSNZ, ANPSNZ and AFIAP. In the 1980s, John's passion for photography developed when he started working in Westland National Park as a ranger. He was working and playing in an incredible environment, big mountains, amazing light, and photography gave him the format to capture some of the scenes there forever. He lives in Greymouth and is currently working for the Department of Conservation based in Hokitika. He is a member of the Photographic Society of New Zealand and the Nature Photographic Society of New Zealand. He enjoys landscape, macro, wildlife and photojournalism, photography. Some highlights of John's photography career has been to photograph wildlife in Botswana and different parts of the Okavango Delta in 2014. This was followed up with a second trip to the African continent, visiting Namibia in 2016, photographing wildlife landscapes and some of the Namibian culture. John has been accredited judge for the APSNZ for a number of years and judges in the open and nature categories, and for that we're most grateful. And now I'll go down and do that job, and I'll read the critiques for him that he's written for us. And I hope everybody's had time to have a look at all the prints on the wall, because they're stunning images. Just for a moment, can I have your password again, please, John? Does everybody get that? Oh, didn't need it. I'm ready when you're ready. Oh, have I gone the wrong way? No, hang on. Which way do I go? Help.
You're at the wrong end.
How do I get to the beginning? Help. Oh, we've got them in the wrong order. Just for a moment, caller. Talk amongst yourselves. And please don't critique me on my Latin tonight. Yeah, I think so. Is it? Yep, we're in the same order. All good? Okay. This was a score 0. So John said about this one is the side lighting, with the light falling from the right to the left, has really helped to define this mollymawk. Unfortunately, the photographer hasn't identified the species correctly. In this case, it is as a Selvins mollymawk or toroa. There is a difference in colouring, especially in the head area, between the two species. The Selvins, as seen in this print, having greyer feathering through the head and neck, with darker strip through the bill and a more distinct yellow marking at the base of the lower bill, while the white-capped mollymawk being whiter through the head and neck and no dark strip in the bill. I think the print is beautiful, but doesn't describe the species as named. I'm not going to accept this print so that the author can perhaps use it in another competition within your club. The white-capped mollymawk is more common at Kaikoura, however, the Selvins do turn up there as well. Unfortunately, this print wasn't in the box, so he wasn't able to judge this one. Score 2, a white-faced heron. The white-faced heron has been caught in flight against the blue of the background water. This aspect of the print is pleasing. I suggest that the reflection doesn't add to the strength of the composition, as the ripples of the water have broken up the mirrored image, perhaps making this more of a distraction when the print is viewed. The light on the subject is quite harsh, leaving some quite strong shadows against the primary wing feathers and near the leg of the heron. Otherwise, the exposure has allowed the colour rendition of the subject to be quite accurate. Koramiko, Athornis melanura, feeding on Phormium tenax. I think the composition is quite strong. The eye just left of centre works really well. I suggest that this is another image that has been cropped quite hard from the original exposure. I say this as the feathers have become quite pixelated and have lost detail. I also think that the colours in the print are not quite correct, as the greens don't appear to be coming through as they should be. Perhaps the printer needs some maintenance. It could be a blocked jet. What I see is more orange and yellow. The story of the Koromiko is there, but the technical issues let the print down. Petroioca macrophala tomtit. The print describes the tomtit reasonably well, nice colour and very sharp. I suggest that the arrangement of the elements within the composition lets the story down somewhat, as the background is quite distracting, and the central placement of the subject subtracts from the strength needed for the composition. I look at the clean, dark background on the left, thinking what a slightly different angle would have isolated the subject from the brightly lit foliage that we see here. The print itself has been well presented, with the semi-gloss media the right choice for the presentation. Carrera at Glentana. I really enjoyed this composition. The colour and the lighting of the falcon against the blues in the background works well. I suggest that something has happened in post-production with the background, as there is a notable difference in colour and shading just to the right of the subject's head, and also to the far right above the log. Once seen, this doesn't go away. The pose with the foot in the air adds a nice element. Vipus buglos, Icium vulgare. The portrait composition suits the subject, and I think compositionally helps to tell the story of the flowering stage of the Vipus buglos. I'm not quite sure what has happened with the background of the print, as there are some diagonal, brighter lines running through the print from the centre to top. Once seen, these are quite distracting. I suggest the print is slightly underexposed, leaving the subject appearing quite flat. Everything is sharp where it needs to be, and the blues and pinks of the flowers are accurate. Fantail, Ripidura fuliginosa on the flax. I enjoyed the composition of this print, with the Piwakawaka eye being nicely lit in the soft light side lighting. I'm not sure what has happened during the printing process, but it appears the greens that should be there in the background are missing. Maybe the printer had a blocked nozzle. The subject's back feathers are very dark, and I suggest this area could have been lightened in post-production by just pulling out the shadows. The white matte complements the whites of the subject. Score 3, this is an accepted, a genus Hycarbe wax caps. The print depicts a hygrogybe, possibly Maniata, pea crumb, in the later stages of its life. The subject fills the composition and is very dominant. I suggest the composition may have been stronger had the photographer pulled back slightly, allowing more of the habitat to be seen in the print. This would have given the subject more scale, and it would have been easier to get the fungi completely sharp. It is only sharp on the front part of the gills and cap. The lighting throughout the subject is quite contrasty. The photographer has done well to depict the gills, cap and stripe, and the colour is reasonably accurate, cap and stipe. Score 3, Pepe Farrar, I can't say that one, at Stick Small Reserve. I think he's a shining cuckoo, isn't he? The strong side lighting has defined the definition in the head, eye and breast area of this Pepe Farrar. I'm wondering if the image was cropped quite hard before printing and then perhaps over-sharpened. The reason I say this is that there are some outline halos above the far wing and between the wing and the tail. There is also some apparent noise evident in the feathering throughout the tail and primary wing feathers. The colouring, though, is spot on. The background is nice and clean, the print is nicely presented, and the large white mat showcasing the subject. Score 3, Ecuador rainforest, unknown moth. The greens of the Ecuadorian rainforest are certainly well represented here, with the moths being quite a cryptic element of the composition. I suggest that the focal point is on the leaves that the moths are sitting on, as I think the leaves are tack sharp, but the moths appear to be soft and less in focus. I am left wondering if these moths are mating as they appear to be joined together. Larger female on the right, smaller male on the left. Perhaps a different angle may have described this a little better. The print is beautifully presented. Mandarin duck, female. I think the composition of this little mandarin duck is quite strong. The eye is on the top third line, just to the left of centre. This is a hot spot in the composition. The subject is on a diagonal, moving towards the right, and has space to move into. The colours of the subject are accurate, with the focal point leaving the entire duck nice and sharp with good feather definition. The reflection of the head in the water adds some interest and adds to the story. Baby seal. This fur seal pup looks like it's poking a bit of cheek, or in this case tongue, at the photographer. This adds interest to the story being told. I think the composition is quite strong, and I like the space on the right, subtly filled with the foreshore rock formation. The subject is tack sharp and very obviously engaged with the photographer. The photographer is also slightly below the subject. This aspect makes the pup stand out. I think the exposure with the bright background has been handled really well. There is still some nice colour definition of the seal. Score 4, Entoloma hochsteria. These Entoloma hochsteria have been photographed in an early stage of their development, as the caps haven't quite opened out. This aspect of storytelling of the print is very strong. The colour rendition of the print is very exact, and the habitat is very well described. I found the blur right front to be a little distracting, while the background is very clean and pleasing to look at. Perhaps this foreground blur could have been cropped before printing. The semi-gloss finish and white matte works well with the subject. Score 4, Leopard observing next meal. I think this print has been beautifully presented. The high gloss media gives the subject some extra punch, while the large white matte keeps the viewer locked into the leopard. The colours have been accurately reproduced. I suggest that the composition could be stronger, as I feel that there needs to be more space above the leopard's head, getting the eyes down onto the top third line. This may have also been a slight compromise, as it would have let more bright light from the African sky into the top of the frame perhaps. In saying this, the bright background has been handled reasonably well. The subject is sharp, tack sharp, with the eyes and mouth contributing to the story of the photograph. I'm left wondering what it has seen. New Zealand tuis. I wonder what these two are talking to each other about. The print tells a nice story about the territorial tui. I think the composition is reasonably strong, but I keep looking at the space on the right as my eye gets drawn down into it, and I would suggest an improvement would be crop the right to match the space on the left. The detail and colour I want to see in the tui is correct, and they're both nice and sharp. The clean background really helps to define the action in the story foreground. Another beautifully presented print. The oversized white matte complements the white in the sky while pulling the viewer to the point. Score 4, crepuscular rays below nimbus clouds. The composition of this weather phenomenon has been well composed. The hint of the tussock high country, bottom, and the vague outline of hills, background, describing the environment. The exposure used has given definition to the crepuscular rays, which may be coinciding with a slight shower of rain. The ominously dark clouds are also well exposed and contribute to the storytelling of the print. I don't think the rain is that far away. The black matte with the white core adds a nice touch to the presentation. Paradise shell duck female Tandora variegata. I think the composition works quite well. The eye is just left of centre and on the top third line. I suggest the only thing that would strengthen this composition is for the photographer to get lower, almost to below the level of the subject's eye. This will help the subject stand out and stand up more in its environment. The duck's primary colours are beautifully presented in the print. The white head I feel is slightly blown out, just losing some detail in the feathering over the top. The habitat is nicely described and I can almost hear that duck calling as shown with the beak open. Once again, the large white mat presents the print very well. Score 4, Juvenile Macrolunchus purpureus. You've given me a harder name to present. Compositionally, I think this works really well, the subject being placed more or less on the right third, leaving space to the left that describes the habitat, as well as adding scale, helps to contribute to the story being told. The colouring of the Macrolunchus purpureus in the print is striking. The subject is very sharp, standing out from its rock pool surrounds. The white mat really helps with the presentation of this print. I always learn something from prints like this, and for me, it was who lives in this shell. In this case, it's a medium-sized sea snail. Crab House. I really enjoyed this print. What a great nature story, and it has been very well told through the presentation of the print. The composition has a flow to it, seemingly from bottom left to the diagonal to top right, drawing the viewer into the whole centre and then to the formation of the little sand balls that the crab has placed, cleaning out its home, while the sand pattern runs on the opposite diagonal. I think the exposure works with just enough contrast to define the patterns across the sand. I think the only thing that could add to the story is the crab itself. Maybe that could be the challenge to capture this aspect going forward. White-faced heron, Egretta nova hollandi. Great timing and beautiful light. I think the composition is very strong, as the heron has been placed on the junction of the bottom left thirds. The space around the subject adds tension and a feeling of space, while also describing the habitat. The circular ripple on the water and the crab being tossed before being devoured is a key part of the nature story being told. The subject is tack sharp, with some nice colour and the feather rendition to describe the species. New Zealand fur seal pup. I think that this composition is quite strong, as the photographer is quite low, allowing the seal pup to be highlighted against the clean sky in the background. I think this composition could have been slightly stronger had there been more space above the pup's head, bringing the eyes down onto the top third of the print. I enjoyed the print with the wide white matting and the semi-gloss finish, and think that the subject's pose adds to the composition. The colour rendition is good, and the habitat also being well described, but just telling enough without subtracting from the fluffy but slightly damp seal pup. Reid long-tailed cormorant, Photographic africanus Uganda. I think the high gloss media used complements the colours of the subject, as it adds a very smooth sheen, with just enough texture to define the cormorant. The composition is reasonably strong. I suggest that allowing some more space above the cormorant's head would have made this composition even stronger. The background has been rendered pretty much neutral. I find the small round tan change in colour from the greens far left slightly distracting. The red eye is striking, and the subject is tack sharp with no noise apparent at all on the print. Pink gill, Enteloma hochsteteria. I looked at this print for quite some time, as I thought this photographer has done something different by adding a sense of space around the subject, while also placing the subject in a strong position within the composition. Well done. I think the slight backlighting adds another element, with the light falling on the fern just to the right of the Enteloma, pulling the viewer into the habitat, which is well described. The background is pretty clean with no real distractions. The semi-gloss media works and the print is nicely presented. Tui, Okarito. This tui has some nice light falling across it. I think the exposure has allowed the correct colour rendition of the subject to be shown in the print, and the subject is tack sharp, along with the flax flower that it is feeding on. I suggest the background is a little bit distracting. The lens bokeh has left quite an array of white light circles that draw the eye. The overall composition of the main subject matter is strong, and the print is nicely presented. The white core of the black mat complements the colours of the tui nicely. Score 5, Putikitiki courtship display. Well timed and well caught. This tells an important part of the story with the Putikitiki and the bonding that takes place prior to nesting. The print really helps to tell the story. The portrait, orientation, strong composition with the subjects perfectly placed, exact colour rendition, excellent feather detail and just enough splash. The reds in the eyes drawing the viewer into the story. The focal point is set for the subjects, leaving everything else beautifully out of focus. Score 5, white-breasted sea eagle. Not going to try that one. This is a really strong composition with the subject placed perfectly, the eye being just to the left of the centre and the left wing creating a strong diagonal towards the top left corner. The action has been frozen by using a very fast shutter speed. This has also left the subject tack sharp with some beautiful fine feather detail. The whites have been correctly exposed without losing any detail at all. The sea eagle is ready to strike, and I am left wondering if the photographer got the next sequence. The high gloss finish of the print makes it stand out, and the black mat with the white core really suits the subject. Score 6 and best in show, New Zealand fur seal and pup. The nature storytelling in this print is exquisite, a very tender moment beautifully captured. Photographers have to be very patient to capture these moments. The key thing is to not disturb the subject and wait. The colouring of the seals in the print and the depth of field used makes the subject stand out from the background habitat. The detail in the pup's eyes and the fur and whiskers of both animals is spot on. The story radiates love between the female and the pup, a very enduring moment. The print is beautifully presented. Without further ado, first thing that I'd like to do is to say on behalf of John, we've got a thank you card at the front desk, and for the judge, I'd quite like everyone, if they can, just sign that card on your way through, and then I can send that off to him as a thank you from us all for judging for the evening. Second thing I'd like to ask John Hawkins, and he will help me, we'll do the awards. Thank you. Do you want a microphone? Or do you want me to do it? Oh, I'm reading. Oh yeah, I'll read. You do that. Okay. We're making it up as we go along. Are you ready? Oh, sorry, Neroli. It's one of those, the genus Hygrocogu wax caps. Congratulations, I'll get you. Okay, thank you. This is that one at Sticksmills. Oh, I know who that is. Sticksmills. Can you say it? Congratulations, John. That's the.
No, I can't say.
No. Are you going to try and say it, Alan? Thank you. That next one, Ecuador rainforest, unknown moth, Karen Conchi. Congratulations. And Mandarin duck, female, by Anne Yan. Anne, baby seal. Anne Yan. Oh, cool. Entaloma, Hochastiri, Janine Money. Leopard observing next meal, Gary Chalmers. Not sure if he's here. Oh yeah. New Zealand Tuies, Nicola Jackson. Crepuscular rays below nimbus clouds, Diana Andrews. Paradise shell duck female, Tandora variegata, Neroli Keating. Now, Jane, I can't say this. Ugh. One of those.
But the white one in the back is actually an adult one, so that's
Oh,
the baby.
Pronounce it?
It's, where is it? Microleucus purpurus.
no, well done. Get a certificate for it. Yeah, saying it. Crab House, Heat Chan Kim. And we just found out that images from Korea. So thanks, Heetcham. White-faced heron, Jane. New Zealand fur seal pup, Penny Kennedy. A Reid, a long-tailed cormorant in Uganda is Barry Dench. Pink gull, Entaloma, Hochastira, Heat Cham Kim. The Tui and Okarito, Janine, Moaning. Putekiteki courtship display, Dawn Kirk. Oh, honours, thanks. Lovely image, Dawn. White-breasted sea eagle, JK. This is an honours. And Dawn's was an honours. Congratulations. Yeah. Funny. And best in show, that's me. Thank you. And I didn't bribe the judge, I promise. Back to you for, thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, does anybody want to actually talk about the images for the honours? And
Yes.
oh, I can't remember it was taken, and I've had time to look it all up and everything as well. Now, I can't actually remember if this was in over in that bay, over by Akaroa, that bay that's called further around. I think it was in there somewhere. I'm not sure if this was in Kaikoura or up in there. But Mark and I do quite a lot of kayaking, And we quite often, I just put my camera in my dry bag and just meander around, and I think it was just a opportune moment, and I shoot on my R5, and I just have a RF 100 to 400, and so just cruise around with that on the kayak. It's probably not the best idea, but I do anyway. Any JK or Dawn, would you like to talk about yours? Or anybody else? Oh yeah, you don't get a choice. Oh, who's first? JK.
Yeah, it was on my trip to Malaysia some years ago, and I actually have this print sitting on in my room for a couple of years. But because this year I didn't intend to enter any print, so might as well. There's a print there ready for me to enter, so I enter, and it's just fortunate.
Lucky, thank you. Oh.
This is just at Catton's Bay. What can I say? They're doing their dance, and I was lucky enough that they came in close enough to get a shot, because they tend to do it out a bit further. And that's about it, really. I've seen them online, and their eyes are really, really bright red, and I've usually got them quite dark, and I noticed that the eyes really bright, so maybe that's just an exposure thing. I'm sure they don't have a difference at this time of the year or something. It was taken last year.
That's lovely, thank you. Is there another one? Should we just do the honours, or do you want to go further? Or okay, we'll call that there, and I'll pass it back over. Thank you.
Janine, thank you very much for organising that and the presentation and reading, and also getting a lovely collection of awards. Well done, and well done to all of you who entered. It's a big step to enter a print, so congratulations, and you learned something from the judges' comments, and do keep trying. Next, CPS closing dates. Tonight is the entries closed for the landscape projected image competition. On the 4th of September, the natural history, projected image 3. The other closing dates of competitions are all on your emails from Diana, and you should keep up to date with those. The next meeting, 7 o'clock, we have it listed as CPS business. Anybody know what that's going to be about? Come along and find, oh yeah, here we go, Dennis is going to comment. I was going to say you'll just have to come along and find out, won't you? But you'll get a preview now from Dennis.
Actually, that's probably not quite true, but I can tell you that at 7 o'clock we'll be looking at a showcase, 2 showcases. One is frames, which is, I hope is following up to Heidi's wonderful presentation probably about a month ago. And so submit your pictures with frames. And the other one is Littleton, which I organised the first walk probably about a couple of years ago, and I think it's about time that we'll have a look at some of the pictures that people's taken about Littleton. I have not yet consulted with Diana about what the CPS business is, but come along and be surprised and probably be informed. I also like to, can I just add a couple of, like to use this opportunity because this is a natural history. Last week I saw on Facebook an Adobe promotion of their beta of featuring Photoshop. And I think it's called generative similar. where you give it a picture of an object, will generate something similar. In this case, it's a heritage tomato. Now, there has been a lot of AI features around, as you know, generative fill, and you can remove and create and move things about. To the point, I think it's probably easy, sure to say that we may not know what is real and what's generated anymore. And I think these are good, powerful tools which have its uses, but also in the natural history context, how would future scientists know the picture to look at hasn't been so subtly modified, a tint here and a tint there? And I would suggest and appeal to people interested in natural history, take pictures, take broader views of the context of what you're taking, record where the picture was taken and any other aspect of it, broader pictures, close up, their environment, etc. And it's kind of like paying forward to future scientists who may have to study. They may get the wrong interpretation of what the natural world's like by looking at pictures that they assume is real, but for some reason something is subtly modified, either in their actual subject itself or maybe in the environment. And I think that's not a good thing. So, this is not just about our natural world and birds and shorelines, but also cities. For example, maybe boring, but hey, look, if you look back on it, 100 years' time, people don't want pretty pictures, probably. They'll want a picture that tells a story. But if the story has been modified, then the interpretation of the history changes. So, we got plenty of pixels, and we can all afford to keep those. Record whatever you can in the metadata or a separate text file. And so anyway, thanks so much for that. Oh, hello, Nielsen.
Thanks, Dennis. Going back to next meeting, the 7 o'clock session, we've heard of these showcases, and the 8 o'clock session will be the print for competition results and critique. Is there any other notices that I've missed out or anything else anyone wants to announce? Okay, well in that case, it is my job to give thanks to all the people who've taken part in running the show, particularly to Nicola for the natural history show, to Alan for his presentation on his photographic journey, John for his presentation on photographic journey, and whoever put the Laurie Thomas Winter School together, John. Anyway, thank you for that, and thank you to all the people who entered prints, images into that competition. Opening and closing, Dennis and Neroli, meet and greet, John and Dennis, sound, Wayne, I believe, projector, Alistair, supper, Dennis and Alistair. Thank you very much all for coming, and we'll invite you to next week's program, Drive Home Safely.